All right. Hello and welcome. We are going to be doing a little tutorial about how to get terminal input in Ruby. But this is going to be a lot more than just about terminal input because that's actually a pretty straightforward thing. This is really going to be about how do we get input from terminal in a reusable manner. Like how do we print out a menu, get the input, and then validate that input. And then also we'll also look at how do we create something pretty dynamic so we can print out any menu, get out any valid input from a given menu, and then go from there. So it sounds simple, but we're going to make it a little more complicated. So let's start with just some priorities here. Whenever you get a task to do, especially when you're just starting out, I think the most important thing is to get it working and to get it working well. And then once you do have it working and you have all your bugs fixed, then you might want to think about how to refactor it, how you could have done it better, and kind of try out some new things. I think that's just a good way to kind of learn how to code. Get it working, then rewrite it, and try to rewrite it better the next time. And so we're going to solve this in a simpler way at first, and then we're going to start seeing how we can use arrays, hashes, functions to really make our code better. So let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, how to get input. Well, that's pretty straightforward. It's the gets method. So in Ruby, there's this method called gets, and it's going to return a string. I actually need to print that out. I'm going to use the p method because this is going to show some extra information. It's not going to strip anything. So if I run this, my code is paused here. It's waiting for me to enter something. I'm going to hit 1. And now I'm getting 1\n. That \n is actually the carriage return for the return key. When I hit return, it's actually getting appended to that string. I don't want that, so I'm going to use this chomp method to get rid of that. So now if I type 1, now I don't have that \n. I just want the thing I was clicked, or the thing that was entered. And the gets method returns a string. So if I type 1, that's a string. Now I could use the toI method if I wanted to convert that to an integer, but I'm fine with leaving that as a string. So that's how you get input from terminal in Ruby. But there's a couple things wrong here. First of all, this is kind of confusing that I'm supposed to enter something. So let's put in a little message. Let's give ourselves a little menu. So I'll say, please select a option. And then let's say our options are, 1. Maybe that's going to be like add stuff, to add some stuff down the road. And then they can hit 2 to delete stuff. So now when we run this, now we have a nice little UI kind of showing, hey, here are your 2 options. You can type 1 or 2. Now that's just the UI. I can type 3, and that's not going to prevent me. So I kind of want to handle this. So if someone gives me bad input, what I want to do is I want to say, hey, that's invalid input, and then get new input from them. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to do a while loop. And I'm just going to say, hey, while true. This is going to be an infinite loop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break, because if you ever have an infinite loop, you definitely need a way to get out of it. So I'm going to break if the input is equal to 1 or the input is equal to 2. Those are my 2 valid inputs. So if they don't give me a 1 or 2 input, then I'm going to put out a message. Let's just interpolate our input. Inputs, I need double quotes for interpolation. Inputs was invalid. enter again. Just a little nice message for them. And then I can go ahead and reassign my input variable to another gets.chomp. And then I'll be stuck inside of this loop until they give me 1 or 2. So if I do 3, gets, I spelled that wrong. Line 23, it's telling me where that error is. Let's spell that right. So I'll hit 3. 3 was invalid, enter again, type 1, cool. So now we've created kind of 2 parts of this where we print out the menu and then we get some valid input. So I think we could wrap this all in an app function, because maybe we're going to want to do some other stuff. Now, something we want to do with functions, sorry about that. Something we want to do with functions is we want to keep them simple. There's a lot of stuff going on inside of here. We have while loops, we have our put statements. So I'm going to start breaking this up into their own functions. For instance, all this code right here, that should be like a print menu function. Because I want to kind of clean up this app function. So I'm going to go ahead, do that inside of here. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a get input. And then throw this inside of here. So then in my app function, I can clean this up a lot by just saying, hey, print menu and get input. Now something I need to change with my get input is this. Now since this is a function, it gets the input, but it's not returning it. So I need to make sure I return that input from this function. And then inside of my app function, I can go ahead and create another variable that will get the result of my function, which will be the input. And then I can call my app function. So once I have my print menu done and my get input, my app function looks a lot cleaner. It just says print menu and user input equals get input. Then here we can put user input. So it's really easy to read, but also, you know, it has my validation in there. There we go. So I can get my input, and that's actually checking that it's valid. I could even maybe rename this to get valid input, just because I know that's going to be valid. And then we can go on. And this is really, I think this is a good level of, you know, abstraction and getting this working. But there's one thing I might want to change here, and it's this, because what if we add another option? Like we want to quit option for some reason, so let's go ahead and do quit. And then I'm going to have to do this inside of here. Now this if statement's getting a little big. So what I can do here is actually let's make a function called def valid input. And I'm just going to throw the logic inside of here. So this is going to return true or false. This is going to take in an input. And then I can go ahead and throw that logic here. Oh. So this was, you know, the input equal 1 or input. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to create, because I could do it that way, but I think an easier way is I'm just going to make an array right here. That's going to take all of my values, so 1, 2, or q. I'm going to put these in an array, because an array has an include method. It's going to be pretty helpful. And so I can just check, is the input included in the array? If it is, that's valid input. If not, it's not. So then I can now use this function here. So I get my input and then I can validate it here. Now something that's nice about breaking this up into its own function is I can now individually test this one valid input function. I don't have to run my whole app. I can just say, hey, does this one function work? So I can test this out. And likewise, I could test my print menu separately. I could do my puts, print menu, and I can test this individually. I don't have to test them together. So let's just try that. Valid input, I need the question marks. That's what I added in my method definition. So that's true and that's false. So I don't have to run my whole app to test my functions. I can test my functions individually. So my print menu works. My get valid input, can test that one on its own. So that can be very useful to just be able to get these subparts working and start building from there. Cool. So yeah, like I said, I think this is a pretty good level, but where this starts to break down, and this is a little more advanced and this is where it can get tricky, is if I want to have another menu. Well, if I want to have another menu, then I'm going to have to probably, the way I have this structure, let's say we have a print another, I'm just going to have to go ahead and, add a whole bunch of stuff, kind of duplicate a lot of this logic, because I need to create that. Maybe this doesn't have quit. Maybe this has 3. So it has different valid options. Because it might be different in size. Maybe this wants, me to get A, B, or C. And then now my valid inputs, that's not going to work. So I'm going to have to write another valid input for that one. And I'm going to have to do another get, I'm going to have to figure out a way how to pass that function in here. So this way of doing it is good, but then once we try to add more menus, we're going to find ourselves adding more code, which if you just get it working, that's okay. That's fine. But what I kind of want to show is how we can make this a little more generic and reusable, make these functions more generic, more reusable. So how we're going to do that, I'm going to delete everything I did, is this is where I kind of need to think about data structures, maybe come up with more of a plan. And my plan is I'm going to have uniform menus. And my menus, I'm going to have uniform menu options. And an option is going to look like this. It's going to be a hash, it's going to have a message, and then it's going to have a value. The message is going to be what the user is going to see, and the value is going to be what's the acceptable value for this when someone enters in a thing. So let me give you an example. So let's say we have a main menu options. And let's just duplicate this one. I'm just going to get it working as it is. So my message for this first one is going to be add stuff. And the value is going to be the string 1. And then this one's going to be delete stuff. This value is going to be 2. And then this is going to be quit. And this value is going to be q. So now I have an array of hashes to print out these 3 things. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to have this print menu. I'm going to have this take a title. So we're not hard coding this title. The user can give me the title. And then they're also going to give me menu options. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the menu options that were given to me. I'm going to do an each loop. Let's go through each option. And I'm just going to puts out, let's interpolate this, the option dot message, or let's do the value first. Let's do the value. And then I'm going to use this parentheses. Now this is part of the string. I'm just trying to get it the way I had it looking, that's it. And then I'm going to grab the message dot, or sorry, the option dot message. And this is the message. All right, I believe, okay, so let's go ahead and now I can test this one out. So I want to call this print menu function right here. Let's just do a little test. So the title is going to be please select a option. And then for this, I'm going to pass my main menu options. I can run this. It looks like I have a syntax somewhere. So line 26. Syntax error, unexpected end. Oh, I forgot my do. And there we go. Please select a option. Add stuff, delete stuff, and quit. I spelled quit wrong. But it's the exact same way I had it. But what I've done now is I've made this print menu. Now this can handle a different menu as well. So let's say we have a sub menu options. We can yo-yo. We can, update. Maybe, and this can have, since we're doing an each loop, this can have many things. This could be like the value could be A, B, C, D. We could still have quit. And now I can reuse my print menu, and now I can print this sub menu. So now I can print both menus. So if I wanted to have two menus, now I can do that. Cool. So let's switch this valid input function to be a little more dynamic. So now I want to validate the input, but I also need to have the menu options again, because now I might have different menu options. So what I want to do is I just want to go through, because if I can just create an array of all the valid options, then I can do this same thing. So how can I go through an array of my messages and just pull out all the values? Because they're all going to have values, so that's what I want to do. I just want to create an array. If it was submenu options, I'd want this to be an array with A, B, C, D, and Q. If it was this one, I want it to be an array with 1, 2, and Q. This is where I can, so here's the trick. If you ever want to go through all your things in an array and create a new array with those things updated or changed in some way, that is when you're going to use your map function. So what I can do is I can go through my menu.options and I can map over them. We'll do this as a proc. I'm going to go through all my options, and I just want to return in my new array the options.value. And now instead of using this hardcode array, I can store this to a variable, valid options. Let's just put this out so we can see it for a second. And then we can see, hey, are my valid options, does it include the input? Our function's a little more complicated, but it's just doing one thing and we can test it pretty easily. So now I can pass this, hey, is 1 a valid option for my main menu? Is a valid option for that, for my main menu? Let's go ahead and puts this out, puts, inputs. I'm also going to get rid of this test here because we know that's working. Valid inputs. Oh, I need a question mark. So let's go ahead and make that a question mark. So see how it's giving me back the array of valid options. I don't know, I accidentally switched that to an A. But I got A, Q, and Q, so 1 is false. Let's run this again. Okay, so yeah, 1 is in there. So here's my first test. That is true. A is not in that one, so that's false. But now I can also go ahead and let's just do one at a time. I can pass this a different menu. So 1 is not a valid option for my sub menu options because it's not in there. But A should be. Cool. So that is. I don't really need that puts in here. That was just for testing, so I can get rid of that. But now I have a way to print a menu, and I have a way to check to see if my options value. Now the key here is these menus, sorry, they have to be this uniform data. And what I mean by that is they need to be a hash with a message key and a value key. Because I'm kind of making these assumptions in these methods. See, I'm making the assumption that my option has a value and a message. Sorry, a value and a message. Here I'm kind of assuming my option. Sorry, and I should call this option, not options. It's not that Ruby cares. It's just more, semantically correct. This is just one option. So I'm going to go, does that option have a value? Cool. So another thing this get valid input needs is now this is going to need a menu. Or this is going to need the menu options as well. Because I've changed this valid input to take an input and a menu options. So I'm going to need to throw that in here as well. Okay, so now in here, when I call my app, I can get the user, well, my print menu, I need to pass it the menu I want to print. So let's do the main menu. And then this one's going to take the main menu as well. Now, this is going to give me an error when I call this. Let's just look at this error. Main menu options is not defined, line 56. So it's saying, hey, that's not defined. Well, yeah, it is. I defined it right here. Now, this is a scoping issue. Remember, this is a local variable. This is not going to be scoped inside a function. So to change that, I'm just going to go ahead and make these instance variables so they can be scoped inside the function. So if I make those instance variables, looks like I'm missing an argument somewhere, line 31. It's given 1, but it wants 2 arguments. So line 31, the print menu. Oh yeah, right here. So the print menu, I need to give this a title. So please select a option. Cool. Awesome. All right, sorry about that. So let's go ahead and run that. So please select an option. I can add stuff. Let's do an invalid input 4. That was invalid. Let's do 2. There we go. And we puts that out. So that's working. So that's good. And now the nice thing here is I can reuse this. So I can do my print menu. Please select another option. So I can have a different menu for my title. I can grab my @sub menu options. And then I can go ahead and do this. User input 2. Let's pass this to sub menu options. Puts user, I said 2, I meant 1. So now I can get, the input for this first menu. And now I have a whole another menu. Let's add some, let's say like 6, that's invalid. Let's enter A, A's valid. So this code might get a little more complicated, but it actually, at the end of the day, simplifies our code because now I can reuse this. I'm reusing these functions, and it's going to really keep my app clean, this app function cleaned up. And breaking these down into smaller functions, these are all easily testable. They're all doing one thing. This prints the menus. This sees if an input's valid. This gets the valid input. And my app's just kind of in control of kind of calling these methods. So this is definitely this third part is definitely a tough layer of abstraction. So remember, your priority is to get it working. And then get it working well. And then try to see if you can maybe do some of this stuff. But I just also wanted to illustrate that, it's really important that you get comfortable with your data structures, kind of nested data structures like arrays of objects or objects within objects. And your each loops, your map loops, how to iterate over these. Because this is how you can really make stuff generic. So hopefully that was useful. If this last part of making these functions reusable was confusing, that's okay. It's just going to take time. And most importantly, practice. You really got to practice these things. So, cool. I think that's it for that. And yeah, see you soon.